So I would want to call on Mrs. Kadafa, my boss. She has done amazingly well with over 30 years experience in the development banking sector. She's done a whole lot of training with the World Bank, with UNIDO, and she's mentored a lot of her subordinates. And I am one of a product of Mrs. Kadafa. Um, she has witnessed the transformation of the Bank of Industry state offices from loss-making position to turn their risk assets by over 400% within a 32-month period. She has done amazingly well, and today she's currently the Deputy General Manager of the Large Enterprise at Bank of Industry, overseeing 5 business groups. She will be speaking to us about the financing models that she believes are possible for actors within the value chain to utilize in able to unlock the food supply chain. And with her will be Andrew from Kenya, who will also be speaking to the financing model. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Victoria, that was so much was said of me. I don't know whether I deserve all those. I'm so humbled, but I'm not sure I deserve all those descriptions or the adjectives that you used to describe me. I'm just Lolo. But I just want to thank you. It's a great opportunity for me to meet this high-powered panelists, experienced people, intelligent, and of course, people that have the passion to drive the food sector in African continent forward. Permit me to say humbly that I'm a product of a farmer's child, and I'm glad that I am one. And so agriculture and food comes to me in a very natural way. I also want to put straight the fact that farmers are not poor. We are very rich people. Why do I say so? It's because I know that the food sector in the next few years, as we are growing in our collective ways, we get to a more than $1 trillion market base. Africa, like everybody has said, will contribute so much. But I like to say that in the value chain financing, there is no one method that fits all. And I want to repeat, there's no one method that actually fits all. But what I always say is that every bits and pieces that are put together make a value. From experience, if I should take a poultry value chain solution, for instance, within the poultry value chain, there are so many players. So there has to be collective responsibility. And what happens most times from credit perspective, it's that people are not specialized. Everybody wants to do same thing over and over again. But I think breaking them down helps to solve the problem. Traditionally, lending for the agri sector, it's usually asset-based. And people are looking for collateral, people are looking for the right implement, people are looking for things to do. For us to succeed, it has to be cash flow based. And then when you're looking at the cash flow based, my experience has always been that people come together to do things that they are specialized in.
Hello, ma'am.
Everybody's problem. So money is everybody's problem. Everybody needs cash. But let me give you an example of one value chain that actually interests us. Cocoa, for instance. You have to start maybe getting from bottom to up. It's not from, you have to identify the market first. So my take, the value chain of cocoa is like my colleague from Uganda said, chocolates and coffee are almost the same thing. So therefore, first, the market. What do we use it for? And people try to do exports. Look at your basic markets. Nigeria or Africa, it's quite larger market. Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Thank you very, very much.
So
yes,
yes, Victoria, sorry.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
So
I can hear you.
In the KYC, we look at relationship banking and then traditionally, but now we're thinking of value chain. In credit risk, we're looking at changing the systems. Probably if we give you the practical, somebody said, I was talking about cocoa. Cocoa from the farm gates. You take the cocoa bud, you clean it, and then the next thing is for you to have the cocoa powder. So you segment the market and you segment also where the value chain is played. I think that way, for me, in terms of experiences that we have had in the past, it's not to generalize, but break the value chain into bits. And then that way we can succeed. Maybe by the time we come into the question and answer session, that will create, for want of time, that will give us opportunities for us to actually discuss extensively what we need to do as individuals. Thank you. Let me stop here for now, Victoria. Hello?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's really, really interesting to know that there are different financing options and models. We all need to position us tap into this meeting. Thank you. I will be introducing Mr. Andrew. Mr. Andrew is a thought leader. He's an amazing and award-winning food and agricultural finance specialist. He was the head of SME and agribusiness finance at Barclays in Ghana and Fidelity Bank Ghana also. He has an MSc in marketing and financial services. He's currently the head of banking at Stili Africa, a global development incubator agribusiness finance initiative in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. He's actually based in Kenya at the moment, and he'll also be speaking to us about possible financing model that can help unlock the food supply chain. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria, and thank you for those kind words. So as you rightly said, I am originally from Ghana, but I have relocated to Kenya, and I am the head of banking sector for Stili Africa, which is an agribusiness finance initiative of the Global Development Incubator. So aside as one of the other initiatives is ISF Finance and the Rural Agricultural Finance Learning Lab and many more. Joel hit the nail right on the head when he said one of the challenges facing smallholder finance, maybe let me turn my video off. Yeah, so the main challenge to the smallholder, as Joel mentioned, is access to finance. But before I go into, Vic, can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Victoria, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Andrew, we can hear you. This is Parminder.
Okay. All right, thank you. So before I go into the proposed models that will support unlock the supply chain, let me quickly mention a couple of do's and don'ts around financing so that you have on top of your head what you are actually approaching the bank for. To start with, please note that, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a commercial bank. Commercial banks do not support startups, and there is a reason for that. As a business, you will need to go through the cycle, gain some experience before you approach the bank. Every banking facility comes with an interest. And so if you don't have the right experience before you take a banking facility, know that you run into difficulty. Number two, a lot more people have mentioned that access to the market is very, very important. Indeed, I will argue that agribusiness finance, any agricultural value chain must start from the market. So know your market before you decide on what to do, because no bank will support speculative activity. That said, I'm going to mention just 3 models that I think can unlock the financing. One is financing of the farmer, doing direct lending to the farmer. This could be in the form of either lending directly to the farmer or an indirect lending through an FBO or through the nucleus farmer or the aggregator. Another way of unlocking the supply chain will be doing what we call financing of movable assets. So Joel mentioned that they will need silos, they don't have money for equipment, etc. So another way is to finance just the movable assets. And this could be in the form of leasing, infrastructural finance, warehouse receipt finance, or collateral management. These are all tools that can be used to finance the movable aspect of the farming activity. My senior colleague just mentioned a while ago that another way of unlocking this is through value chains. So you can either finance through the off-taker, do a supplier finance, trade finance, factoring, or many of the likes. But whichever financing model is chosen has to have a risk assessment and a risk mitigation component. I think I will stop here, and then as we progress, we can delve deep and discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Thank you so much. You have listed lots of possible ways, that models that can unlock the food supply chain. However, in your statement, you said the risk have to be mitigated, and those are some of the factors that the farmers are not able to do at the moment. We will come back to that conversation when we take questions from everybody. We will go to Mr. Chika Okeke. Mr. Chika Okeke is an advocate for right policies to enable us feed Africa. He runs the Feed Africa network, and he's the executive director of the network, a non-governmental organization that actively engage the key stakeholders in Africa's agriculture, because he's interested in adoption, implementation of key policies. That is why we're having this conversation with all the major stakeholders involved, from the farmers to the ag tech enabled partners, and to the financiers. And as a policy maker, he will help us, a policy advocate, he will help us to push these policies to the right sectors, while we also at Support for African SMEs do the best we can. But we want an all-inclusive conversation. So we would like to understand from you, Mr. Chika Okeke, what exactly policies can be put in place to help farmers so that the food supply chain can be unlocked. Not just farmers, all the players in the value chain. Before you start, I would want to say that this session is recorded and will also be shared to all the participants today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chika Okeke.
Yes, thank you, Victoria. Can you hear me? Thank you, Victoria, and thanks a lot to Paminda for bringing me on in, and to my fellow co-panelists that have spoken. My name is Chika Okeke. I'm the Executive Director of Feed Africa Advocacy Network. So I'm going to be speaking directly from the point of the food supply chain with respect to the COVID. What COVID-19 has made us to understand is that our food system in Africa is broken. There are frictions and there are paralyses that needs to be fixed. And what COVID-19 has taught us is that we need to go back to the drawing board to start afresh. And across the chain, from farmers, from farm to market, from farming itself to processors, to producers, to transporters, there is someone who is missing in the link, who, however, is the most important part of that chain, and that is the government. Government actually is the person who dictates the pace upon which all other actors in the value chain act. Government sets the music that actually all other the actors dance to, and without the government having the enabling environment, every other value chain will suffer a very big friction. Government is the elephant in the house. Government agriculture is supposed to be government public sector led, enabled, and private sector driven. However, this is not happening in Africa. So I'm going to be speaking from the point of view that our food systems is broken. And what are we going to do moving forward to be able to see that farmers do it right and other value chain actors are actually doing it right? First,
your fridge, the leak now.
There is a very important need for government in Africa to decide which model of agricultural development we want to adopt. Is it going to be a smallholders farm model or commercial agriculture? Smallholder farmers that produce less food but actually employ more people. Or is it going to be commercial farms that actually...
They say, wash your hand.
I'm being interrupted. I'm being interrupted, Victoria. I'm being interrupted. So is it going to be smallholder farmers that produce less food or commercial farms that produce small food? So first, we need to understand what our model is moving forward. Secondly, government needs to be able to adopt policies that boost productivity. For instance,
have you finished?
I'm being interrupted, Victoria. I'm being interrupted.
Can the admin mute everybody?
I'm being interrupted. I can't go on like this.
Yeah, just talk for 2 seconds.
Now, correct. Now, for this man, I mean, now mute everybody. Mute everybody, and only the speaker should be muted.
Yeah.
I'm being interrupted. I can't go on like this. I'm being interrupted. They invite you to do this.
Okay. So first, government needs to adopt key policies that boost productivity. Why is it that in Africa, a farmer that has got 100 hectares of land is considered a poor farmer, but a farmer in Europe that has 5 hectares is considered rich? Government needs to open up the land reforms and make land convertibility easy and make the process of ownership of land easy. A farmer who has 100 hectares of land should not be going to the bank and saying that he has no asset. So liquidity needs to be brought into the land, which is through land reform. Government needs to be able to ask themselves, are we open to GMOs? Are we not open to GMOs? It needs to be spelled out. Government also for productivity. For seed, we need to have what is called the Plant Variety Protection Act in all African countries, whereby innovations in seed is patented, so that if I have got an innovation to give farmers higher yields, this can actually be patented. My intellectual right can actually be protected. Secondly, government needs to watch fiscal policy. By fiscal policy, our expenditure to agriculture. You cannot say that agriculture that contributes 70% in employment, as much as 30% to GDP, that you are giving it 0.3% of your budgetary allocation. This is lip service. The Maputo Declaration of 2003 African heads of state came together to agree that they were going to give 10% to agriculture. It's not being done. Only about 10 or 9 government as of today is doing that. So African government needs to devote more funds to agriculture, to transportation that stimulates agricultural development, to the energy sector, electricity that unlocks the wealth in the value chain. Thirdly, government needs to get right the policy to drive foreign investors. We cannot unlock the food supply chain without money. The World Bank estimates that out of the 49 billion that is annually required in dollars for investment in the agricultural sector in Africa, only about 6 billion is coming. Government needs to get right its foreign exchange model. So are we going to be running a peg system that discourages investors so that they bring funds today and tomorrow we devaluate the currencies? Government needs to be able to decide and keep in place ease of doing business, the rule of law. Very importantly, money only goes to countries where there is sanity. Money only goes to countries where there is sanity, where there is rule of law, where there is governance. So government in Africa needs to be able to get this right. Are we going to be running an import substitution industrialization or an export-oriented industrialization? This is going to dictate whether you are going to keep the interest rates down or keep the interest rates up. If the interest rate is high, it does not encourage export. If it's down, then certainly it encourages it. So government needs to get this right. Fourth, we need to be able to open up the ability for Africa to trade between itself. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is right and is spot on. However, it needs to be fair. The ECOWAS trade liberalization scene has made us to see that West Africa has been a dumping ground. Nigeria has its borders closed because ECLTS is not fair, is not measurable, is not monitored. So in AFCTA, we need to get it right to make sure that Africa is not a dumping ground. Most importantly, Africa needs to adopt a climate change policy. Why is it that in the trillion of climate change fund, green bonds, blended finance, Africa is not getting as much as 3%? So we need to get it right in our climate change policy to be able to attract foreign investment, to be able to access green bonds, to be able to access blended finance, impact investment that is out there. Victoria, most importantly, government in Africa need to look at data and statistics. Our data is manipulated, our data is politicized. The key aggregate and aspect of data is that data must be accurate, data must be reliable, data must be measurable. This is lacking in Africa. So you cannot take any data in Africa and make a decision with it. Investors are not sane, investors are not stupid, investors need to work with reliable data. Most importantly, we are talking about digital penetration. There can be no digital penetration if we do not have policies from government to enable private sector companies to lay key infrastructures that are going to stimulate this. Good news is coming from Nigeria. The right of way for digital fiber optics laying is actually being reduced from about 5,600 per linear meter to about near less than $1 per kilometers. This needs to be encouraged. This needs to be sustained. This needs to be continuously followed up. Finally, most importantly, for a food supply system to be fair, consumers need to be sure that they are getting the food that is quality, that is standard. In Africa, Nigeria, across board, you've got a lot of contaminated food, a lot of, be it using carbide to ripen bananas, palm oil that is contaminated and adulterated. What is mechanism in place for consumers to be able to redress and to get justice? Government needs to be doing it. Most importantly, above everything, security is the most important thing. If you get everything right, from financing to data to climate funds, but you do not have security, no investor is going to come there. We see this in Nigeria, that the herdsmen crisis means that farmers cannot even go to farm. Investors do not put their money and their resources where there is trouble. Investors do not put their money where the risk is too high. We see in Rwanda that even though Rwanda is limited in its resources to coffee, to tea, More funds are going into agricultural development than Nigeria, where there is instability, than Ethiopia, where there is population, where there is market, but there is no stability in terms of security. So we need to do the right things to make sure that across board that farmers have the security they need to be able to move. But above all things, these policies must be measurable. These policies must be consistent. These policies must be sustainable. They should not be short-sighted. They should not be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, as we've seen in Africa. Africa needs to develop a 10-year plan for its agricultural development that should not be truncated by political system, that should not be truncated by politics, that should be not be truncated by leaders coming in and going. It should be steady, it should be measurable, it should be sustainable. If we do this, we will unlock the wealth in Africa. We will be able to get farmers, make sure that their land has the key ingredients of liquidity to be able to get finance. Until we get this, we will continue to punch below our weight as far as food security, as far as agricultural development in Africa. It is not enough for us to have resources. Africa must move from a nature-based strength to a science-based strength. This is what we need to do in Africa. Jesse Ozobel said it, and I quote. So I conclude, and then in the comment section, I can be able to make input. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very, very much, Mr. Chika. I am so glad that you have stated a lot of things and made a lot of points that borders around policies and how government needs to move the sector forward with the policies. I'm glad that some government officials are listening in right now. They are listening to what we're saying from Lagos State and from the federal government of Nigeria and some other government agencies that are outside Nigeria, within Africa and outside Africa.
Yeah, thank you.
We need to help ourselves. We need to help ourselves. As Africans, we are the only ones, like Pamindia has stated earlier, that can grow Africa. We need to look inward. Now we need to allow our participants to send in their questions to which will be collated, targeted at our panelists today. However, one round of questions I will ask across board, and please let us go straight to the point so that we can get the most out of this session. We are a little bit behind time. This question goes to Mrs. Kadafa. You said that value chain must be broken down and specialized. Please, can you highlight more on how this funding can penetrate this the broken down value chain? How can, knowing that there's an issue of collateral and most smallholder farmers do not have collateral, and the joy of the farmer is not really in how much he makes, but the impact he makes in the life of people. Are they being fed? So, but how then can he expand and feed more people with adequate financing structure? Thank you. Hello, Mrs. Kadafa. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Not doing anything.
Hello, Mrs. Kadafa. Okay, since Mrs. Kadafa is not on, can we have Andrew answer this question for us? Andrew, are you there? Mr. Andrew? Hello,
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, can you answer the question, please?
Sorry, I lost connectivity for a while. What is the question, please?
The question is, how can farmers access collateral that will help them move their business to the next level, knowing that a successful model can be the specialization of the value chain, financing the value chain system in a specialized way?
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. It is a sad spectacle, it's a sad state of affairs that usually banks and especially commercial banks will ask smallholder farmers to provide collateral. As Mrs. Kadafa mentioned earlier, lending should not be asset-based, it should be cash flow-based. But because we are where we are, and through the rules and the regulations of the central banks, banks as a matter of course have to take on collateral. My advice to smallholder farmers would be to rather work through their value chains. If you do not have collateral and you are challenged by collateral, then you are better off, as I suggested earlier, going through a farmer-based organization, going through the nucleus farmer network, or through an aggregator. I am consciously aware that yes, people along the chain do tend to cream off your profits, but I think you are better off in that process than having nothing at all. So if you are a smallholder farmer at the startup when you have started, when you don't have the capital base, you don't have the credit muscle to attract, for example, bank financing, then my best bet or suggestion for you is to connect to a bigger player in your network to supply you seeds, to connect to through an FBO or a nucleus farmer who takes funding and then passes all some to you. But in doing so, Vic, one of the important things and one of the challenges that has made financing to smallholder farmers a problem is side selling. So while you build relationship with others in the value chain, it will be important that as a smallholder farmer, you also keep your character and track your character in check so that you don't disappoint people in the value chain. And the next season, you can get input, you can get support, and you can get your supplies. But if you are supplied the first time and you side sell, you don't go according to the tenets and the relationship that was agreed, then you know that next season you'll be challenged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Mrs. Kadafa, please, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, now I can.
Yes,
thank you very much. I have a question as to what we should do differently for us to be able to access finance. It's for smallholder farmers, it's quite a tasking relationship. Collateral has always been the main thing, but cluster financing is always the best. I had Andrew mention that it's always the best way to go, the option to go. And I'll give you an illustration. If we had cluster farmers of maize in a particular place, say in Kano, for the purpose of people that are Africans and are not in Nigeria, Kano is one of the biggest markets for maize in Nigeria. And you group them into clusters or cooperatives. One of the basic things is integrity. The Anchor Borrowers program in Nigeria has actually worked successfully, linking the smallholder farmers to the aggregators and then by extension to the processors. That it's working successfully in Nigeria, where the processor, who is the big corporate, unbundles the crops to the factory. That it's also working. You might even say that, well, the profit margin to the farmer might be small. But what is happening is that three things have happened. One, there's a guaranteed offtake of the farmer's crop, which motivates the farmer to go back the next year to also farm. Minimum guarantee pricing, it's always, it's very encouraging. The fact that prices are negotiated from the onset and locked in, such that if in the event that anything like a force majeure comes in, the aggregator or the processor will also want to bear the cost. The third thing is that the farmer, it's paid as I when due. But one of the links that I've discovered is that while the warehousing facility or warehouse receipt methodology is working in other African countries such as Ethiopia, that is also quite needed in Nigeria for the purposes of enhancing the capacity of the farmer, where you can take money, take your receipts, and then go back to the farm, to the bank, assured of the quality. And then it also creates standardization. It creates market involatility for the farmer. So basically, we need linkages and we need integrity amongst all the players. There has to be collaboration. There's no one person that can do it all. So collaboration is one of the things that we'll always be looking at, so that one, growth, expansion, value addition, which is also key, warehousing is also key, logistics is also very key. So when you're doing value chain financing, most of the things that you look at is the cash flow. You look at the ability of the people to also deliver, the quality. When we're talking about food, what are we not talking about? We're not talking about just eating, we're talking about nutrition. COVID-19 has told us that you need nutrition, not just for you to just go and produce maize. These days, the half-life maize is very, very critical. You can't just consume anything and expect to remain healthy. So for the farmer, he needs education, he needs sensitization, he needs the market, he needs the training, and then above all, he needs the commitment to also deliver on the path. So that collaboration is very key in unbundling what we should be doing as African farmers or as Nigerian farmers or in the continent, because we just need to feed one another. I think basically I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. This question is targeted at Mr. Jewel, Mr. Thomas, and Mr. Chika. So any of you can just let me say a word, speak to this question. Government and private sector needs to collaborate, which Mrs. Kadafa has stated again, to provide access to roads to and out of the farm. During our shoot, going from farm to farm, we realized that roads, even within the urban area, its access to the farms are really, really, really not easy. We need to set up the logistic hubs and companies that can help enhance the movement of produce from the rural area to the urban area and reduce the multiple tax being currently levied on truck drivers. How do you think this collaboration can happen? Mr. Jewel, can you please unmute yourself? Mr. Jewel, are you here? Okay. Please, can we have Mr. Thomas Ogundere? Mr. Jewel, are you with us? Mr. Thomas, can you speak to this question? Okay, Mr. Joel, we can hear you. Okay, so we cannot hear Mr. Joel at the moment. Maybe we're having connectivity issues from his end. Mr. Chika, what can you say as regards to the ability of the government and the farmers and the stakeholders to collaborate? What are the key things that are necessary for them to collaborate so that we can have basic infrastructure, as Mr. Joel has rightly stated, that those simple as access to road, they do not have from the farm gate to the market. What are the things that we can put in place to allow for collaboration between the government and the stakeholders? Thank you. Mr. Chika.
Thank you, Victoria. So government, it is called the public-private partnership arrangement, which is the PPP. It is a cardinal framework that is needed to be able to develop the agricultural sector. That being said, the responsibility of government is to put in place key infrastructures such as road network, such as key transport networks, such as the port systems, such as the road. The farmers do not have a responsibility to collaborate with government on this aspect. These are key infrastructures that is the responsibility of government to put in place as reflected through their fiscal expenditures. So this is the responsibility of government. And why this linkage is broken in Africa is because we have got a broken governance system. In every other place in the world, in Europe, in America, you don't see farmers building road. I use, for instance, the Nigerian port at Apapa. Dangote, who is the largest employer of labor, even opted to construct that road. But you see, there are bottleneck bureaucracies, there are precedences you don't set. And so that was why that was a challenge. So what do we need to do? Government cannot transfer its responsibility to farmers or to private sector. In every developmental model, the government comes in to provide key infrastructures, and then the private sector and farmers now leverage on this to be able to do their business. So transportation infrastructure, the government across Africa must invest in this to be able to stimulate investment. Port systems, this is the responsibility of government. But beyond this, from this point, private sector companies can now come in to collaborate with government in setting up what is called agro-processing zones, which the government should set up, and then in collaboration with the private sector. I give you, for instance, the One Port, which is driven by Intel for a long time. This is a private sector, but before they came in, government already created the enabling environment. And let me also say that the basis for agro-processing hubs is electricity. Without electricity, calling a designated center an agro-processing zone or an agro-industrial zone does not work. So it is the responsibility of government to provide key infrastructures such as road, such as transport linkages, and then it is the private sector that comes in. We have Zido Logistics doing a great work. They can now come in knowing fully well that the level of depreciation of their assets in lorries, in vans, in whatsoever, that is actually going to pay off. And that if they set up warehouse, that is also going to work. Let me also say that government in Africa has no business with managing warehouse systems. We've seen the Ethiopian Commodity Exchange as a laudable model. So the Nigerian government should encourage other private players, such as what we have other key players doing, and not go. Afex Commodity Exchange, for instance, is doing well. So the SEC And the government should not be playing around, trying to create warehouses in different points. No, this is the responsibility of the private sector. Use the resources to provide road, and then the private sector and farmers would build on it to create transport infrastructure, warehouse infrastructure, processing zones that are built upon agro-processing hubs that already have existing electricity. This is the level of type of collaboration that we need to be done.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chika. Thank you very much. So please, if you've learned something and you think it is quite important, this conversation, you can tweet hashtag TAFS 2020, TAFS 2020 on Twitter, on Instagram, or any social media platform. Thank you very much. We want to dive more into the digital platform, how this digital platform can enable access to market, because we've come to realize that they are a key factor in unlocking the supply chain. As we have seen, the likes of the Triver Greek, the Farm Crowdy, they've helped to aggregate funds and structure a new financing model. Some financing experts may not appreciate that, but it is a model, as it were. How then can we use the digital platform owned by Mr. Mike and Diana to revolutionize access to market? Because we need these farmers to be included. Again, most questions are saying that you have to educate the farmers. What are you doing to educate the farmers about your platform and include them? Thank you very much.
Hi. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, brilliant. First of all, market access. The way it works nowadays is that the first thing people do is the proper search on Google to find any information across the world. It is essential to understand that when people search, we need to be found. For market access, we need to invest largely into marketing to global spaces. What we have done in the past couple of 8 years is that we've curated search engine optimizations, digital marketing through Google of different produce across foodstuffs and commodities to the global markets. So now when you search from India, from Canada, from US, I need to buy yam flour, it automatically comes through and we can connect with the request and facilitate the trade information. In Africa, trade information is one of the biggest unnoticed deficit of infrastructure that is meant to be done. I will explain to you. Do you know what is available right now in Tunisia? Do you know that fishes that are made in that are produced in Morocco are packed in sardines and sold across Africa? There are hundreds and millions of products and foodstuffs across Africa that people don't know anything about. We need to open up this market by disseminating information through the digital platforms. Government is doing their little. We private organizations need to do more, because that's how we liberate the people, by giving them a chance to trade in the global markets. And the ultimate goal of this is that by the time AfCFTA kick into full action, You need to be able to know what is going on in Kumasi. You need to know what is going on in Nairobi. And this information will be vital because if there's a produce in your own local environment that costs like $100, and in Kumasi it is $10, you will find a means to put it down. And trade information build infrastructure. This is the sentence where I will explain. When there is an opportunity somewhere, investors find a way to connect that opportunity to make sure that it is profitable. This process facilitates infrastructure build, just like Mr. Chika mentioned earlier that Dangote had to finance some of his investment on even that public work. So let me keep it there. Then for the other one, educate farmers. Largely, it's not easy for private organizations to reach to large farmers because it's so wide across nations, across countries, across states. We need government support in disseminating through media, newspapers, news medias, and radio, which most of them have access to. With this, the media will be able to cut across so much regions, like text your new products to 2828. So will pick it up and you'll find buyer. It's that simple. Thank you.
Interesting. That is amazingly, it's an amazing solution. Text your product so that you can find buyer. Diana, who is the co-founder of One Agri, have also done amazingly well with the International Trade Organization to ensure that the right policies that will push digitalization is on board for African farmers. Diana, please, if you could give us more insights to the solutions that One Agrics have as of today that are practical, that will truly and absolutely include the smallholder farmers. But just before you start, I would want to say thank you to all our sponsors, Big Dutchman, Clark Energy, the Business Day, Business African Online, Agro Business Center, and to National Economic Paper. They have been very amazing in helping us tell the African farmer's story and support the African farmer. We're indeed glad to have them on board. To all the farmers that have allowed us to come to their farm, Mrs. Okwesho Wamimo, Mr. and Mrs. Nbeoma Kuye, and a whole host of farmers that have allowed us to come and interview them at their farm. We say a very big thank you to you, and this series will be unlocked very soon. So please continue tweeting about the African farmer's story because they are indeed Diana.
Yes, apologies, you froze there. So is it my turn to speak now?
Yes, it is.
Yes, first I would like to say that, collaboration is key for across all value chain, including smallholder farmers, if we want to unlock, the food supply chain in Africa. Now, e-commerce is a tool where, like what just now, Mike was saying, it's a tool for to prepare farmers to get ready for the AFCFTA. This is where, Africa as a continent has the opportunity to go global. I want to share that, we have the opportunity to be invited last year at African Union Commission, together with International Trade Center, which is a mandate of United Nations and World Trade Organization, to speak on the ground with farmers and the young African youths at AU. And, it's very interesting, to speak with cooperative representatives, with farmers across Africa, who've attended. And really, how we can help them gain market access is to really form partnerships or drive policies at an upstream level. So for us, One Agrix has an official partnership with International Trade Center, and we are mandated to, how do we actually help smallholder farmers, is we are mandated to actually give free access at no charge for them to onboard on our platform. So that's one. Now, this is a great opportunity for smallholder farmers and all farmers across the continent to try to or do small scale cross-border trade, or even trade within your country itself, and to prepare yourself, when an AFCFTA is ready, to global export. Secondly, you talk about training of smallholder farmers. We are very blessed to have two managing directors on the ground in Africa. One, Mr. Said Oshin, he was a former Tony Alumelu alumni, works very well on the ground in West Africa, and he covers West and Central Africa. And then we have Ziad, who's part of the Southern and East Africa region, where we also have volunteers who will go on the ground and to help and to communicate with farmers. And they already have mobile phones. We have to realize this, encouragingly, smallholder farmers already have mobile phones in their hands. It's how do we actually inspire them, empower them to use their mobile phone to go online, to make that, take their pictures of their crops, share it on an e-commerce platform like One Agrix, and to trade globally. So this is what our efforts at One Agrix have been trying to do. To what Chika has been saying, it is definitely a PPP partnership, and at the same time, it cannot be just one player who handles everything. It will be a collaboration of the different stakeholders in the value chain.
Thank you very much, Diana. That was quite interesting, that you've gotten people that are willing to volunteer to spread the word and spread the message that you can be onboarded for free onto the platform. So most times it is about the knowledge. How do this farmer get to know about this information? Most of them are not tech savvy. And I would like Mr. Chika to speak to this. How can we drive these farmers to be tech savvy, to be able to onboard themselves with simple technology? However, why we say that, we also want to say, how can we ensure that government, we've said it over.
Yeah, Victoria, can you hear me?
Of these policies. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, there was a bit of disconnection when you were asking the last phase. I only heard how can farmers be onboarded into the digital platform.
Okay, so I'm asking that with this disconnect between farmers, the policies, and the government, what can we really do to ensure that and hold the government accountable, so that this revolution that we seek in Africa, because that is the only way we can, as people, help each other. How then can we use what means can we use to hold our government in Africa accountable, so that Africa can feed Africa?
So first, let me mention that there is a big disconnect in accountability. Our people now. The essence of why I co-founded Feed Africa Advocacy Network was that I have played in the private sector. I have also been in government. I was a key member of the River Basin Development Authority. I was a part of a technical team that redesigned that to bring forth the new efficiency and what you have. I've been in government in terms of advisory. I've been able to invest in agriculture myself, and I found that we are scratching the surface without key policies. And this was a motivation to co-found Feed Africa, so that we can be able to hold government accountable. However, We cannot do it on our own. Every person, every citizen needs to ask questions, Victoria. We need to ask questions about accountability. Just 2 weeks back, in Nigeria specifically, the Ministry of Agriculture said that about 9 billion was mismanaged in buying a building that never was supposed to. Currently, we are having a lot of allegations against key agencies of government. I wouldn't mention names. These things die off because the ownership is not there. The ownership is not there. Farmers have this idea that when they talk, we have this feeding bottle government in Nigeria that goes around giving inputs to farmers. When you have 30, 40 million farmers, they select and give to 100,000 farmers. So you have people who think that they are dependent on government to be able to get input. So they shouldn't say anything. Even when the seed, there is a disconnection, they shouldn't say anything. There is a lot of mess in what government is doing. I tell you something. In the seed industry, government goes, in Nigeria specifically, they give the contracts for seed supply to companies that are restaurants and car dealers that have nothing to do with seed companies. So what happens? These people go to the market, pack seeds that are neither hybrid nor supposed to be foundational or whatsoever thing. Pack it from the market and then supply back to farmers. That is recycling, and nobody is holding them accountable. So we need ownership. The people deserve the government they get. Africans need to take ownership of what government is doing, not just farmers, across all boards. I've discovered that private sector companies, they don't want to talk. So we are now coming to them to say, don't talk. Tell us what you want to be said. Tell us, don't say it and then you lose your company. So say those things to us and then we can now say it to the government. So we need more organizations, we need more individuals to key into the advocacy, to be part of our network across all countries so that we can be able to ask the right questions. It begins with us as farmers. It begins with us as processors. It begins with us across all value chain to make sure that we speak out, to make sure that what is supposed to be done is done, to make sure that the seeds that were supposed to be given to us is given to us, to make sure that in insurance, when we insure our farms and they come behind to say, yes, you have 2 million or 1 million for us to pay you, but we need to take back 1 million and pay you 1 million. They need to come out to speak forth. There is a mess, is a rotten system, I'm going to say. So, but ownership is key. Let's own it up across board. Let us know that without government, nothing is going to work.
Interesting. Thank you so much to all our panelists. We will take a last word from all the panelists and give us their closing statement in just one line. We thank you all that we can see there's possibility of collaborating within the platform, within collaborating with each other, either as a farmer or a digital platform or a financier or an advocate for the growth of Africa. We need to come together, and that is what Support for Africa SME is doing, and is ensuring to tell the African farmer's story so that Africa can rise and take its rightful place and feed itself.
Yeah.
Having said that, I would want to say that if you are a farmer in Africa or you are playing in the value chain in Africa and you would like to share your story with us, please kindly send us a message at info@supportforafricasme.com. The 4 is numerical 4, info@supportforafricasme.com. Follow us on our social media platform, which is already posted on the chat page. Please do follow and hear the amazing things that African farmers are doing to thrive through this difficult time. Regardless of the infrastructural gap, they have still ensured that we are properly fed. Because time is not on our side, we will just take one round from each panelist, their closing and advice to all of us that have taken our time to remain till the end of this program before I hand over to the host, Ma'am Pamindia. Brief and straight to the point. Thank you very much.
Hi. Can you hear me? Can I go first?
Yes, you can go first, please.
Okay, brilliant. The biggest thing I observed in Africa is that Africans need to invest in Africa. There's need to get curated information and transparent data to people and for Africans to invest in Africa. If we keep buying lands with all our money and we don't try to invest in ourselves, little can foreign investors do. And for today, we'll be giving out free $20 for anybody that registers on cocodeal.com, COKODEAL.com, to market their goods for them and to get buyers locally and internationally.
Wow.
Looking forward to greater works working with you all. Thank you very much for this wonderful program. I love it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. Deanna, you can go next.
Okay, I wanted to say that the African youths are the future of Africa. And I have great engagements with many African youths at my time at AU, and they are really the backbone of economies across the continent in the continent going forward. And also want to highlight that agricultural sector is the future of or in fact it should be now, where Africa will really succeed. We have great land, great soil, great products. And I do feel that if everyone collaborate together and come together across the value chain from government all the way to private sector, I do feel that, Africa Rising, hashtag, it would be a real thing.
Thank you very much, Diana. Mr. Chika, please, can you go next?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for putting this together. Like I said, this is impressive. This is laudable. In one word, the future of food security, the future of agriculture in Africa lies on the ability of our farmers to be competitive and to be productive. How can we produce more food from one land? How can our farmers get more for less? And how can the pricing of our products compete at the international market? The future of agriculture in Africa is there. It's clear. We just need to do the right things. Jose Ozibel of the Rockefeller University said that 2 revolutions has changed agriculture in the past. Number 1 is machines and tractors. Number 2 is nitrogen and the fertilizer, which is the chemical. But the next is going to be information. As Africa begin afresh, can we look back to see the lessons that how machines and tractors has either impeded or helped the other people to develop, and how chemicals and nitrogen has either degraded the land or also helped. Let us put it together in the age of singularity and be able to tap into information, artificial intelligence, and digital technology to move our agriculture from where we want to the Africa we want in 2063. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Jewel, you are unmuted. Please, can you give us your last word? Our African farmer. Hello,
Well,
Mr.
Thanks so much, Tim, for all your contribution. I must say that Africa has been a ground for several trials from at our own government levels country. There have been 5 models so far, investing trillions of Uganda shilling, but things are not working. Now, importantly for Africa are several issues around the mindset. Speakers earlier spoke about an idea of digitizing Africa's agriculture. The majority of smallholder farmers on the African continent, especially in my country, Uganda, are 55 years and above. And technologically, they are not savvy. Now, the youth, who should be taking over from the aging population in rural areas, have abandoned villages because villages don't have what interests them. Roads are bad, no social life, young people like entertainment. So, government should prioritize investing and transforming rural parts of Africa to attract young people, and then creating programs that inspire young people to love agriculture is probably sexy. But for now, and I look at the future as being bleak for Africa because majority of the young and the energetic don't like agriculture. Our education system has spoiled them to think in terms of comfortable life. They want urban areas. They want to spend all day sports betting. They want to be real estate agents. They like cheap money. So all this discussion we've had now, if governments, if those in the private sector don't invest in transforming rural parts of Uganda, like the speaker in Nairobi was saying, that we need hubs in the village, agriculture hubs, where there will be industrial parks at regional level, maybe at county level. Otherwise, it's going to be an uphill task. Now, the other issue that's a bit critical, there's been a lot of money poured on the African continent. A World Food Program, for example, had a project in Uganda, in regional hubs of Uganda, where they built beautiful warehouses, invested not less than $4.5 million. But because of management issues, some of these beautiful warehouses with beautiful cleaning system, dryers, silos are rotting.
Wow.
So I think,
wow.
Yeah, they're rotting away. They're not achieving the intended goals. And yet farmers are continuing to lose their crop in West with white elephants in the vicinity. So governments, especially in Africa, should get down to the drawing board and think. Probably there's a lot of corruption that has undermined. Like in Uganda, for example, cartels have taken over the coffee value chain. They won't allow the ordinary peasant in the village to benefit like they are benefiting. The grain industry in my country, maize and rice, has been overrun by cartel. They prefer to import paddy rice, brown rice from Pakistan, from India, because the costs of production in those countries with government subsidies are low. They have mechanized the agriculture. Now they have frustrated the rice value chain in my own country, Uganda. So, and peasants are ordinary people who will make noise for them. So I like the idea that we converge in this form of platform to discuss ideas that can transform Africa. And it begins with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It begins with us. I like that part. It begins with us. Thank you, Farmer Drill. This is super, super amazing. Mr. Andrew, please, I know that everybody wants to hear from the financiers because, I mean, you are always the white elephant in every conversation. Please, can you tell us your last words and advice? Make it please brief so that we can finish in good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria. My parting words would be, businesses have cycles. It starts from the beginning, goes through a growth stage, matures, and declines. At each stage of the business cycle, there is an appropriate financing mechanism or financing tool. So know where you are in the business cycle and decide or determine which financing tool will be appropriate. It could be money from your own resources, from family and friends, from business angels, from venture capitalists, from development finance institutions, blended finance institutions, commercial banks, and the likes. Do not just start with your business and run to a bank. Know where you are in the cycle and determine which financier to approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. That was spot on. Know where you play in the value chain and know who should finance you. You must understand the available financing structure. We would like to have from the final, the last but not the least, from Mrs. R. Kadafa. I am trying to find her now. Mrs. Kadafa, please can you unmute yourself? I am not able to unmute you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Andrew said fundamental things, but in closing, Victoria, I just want to thank you for putting this together. It's fantastic. I'm always saying I'm proud of you and I'm glad to be associated with you. My last words are commodities are farmers' currency. We should know that that's your currency. But Andrew said particular things that you should know where to play. But in closing, I'd like to say that there are 5 strategic drivers that we must always consider in your value chain financing. The biophysical and the environment. Chika made so many pronouncements on that. The demographic drivers, that's the population that's emerging. You need the population as to who you want to feed. The infrastructural drivers are very key. We talked about collaborations and collective responsibilities because of the complexities in the value chain. You need the social cultural drivers, which is the change, that's the mindset, the fact that we can. That we can has to be, and we are Africans and proud to be one. You need the political and economic drivers to be able to do and succeed in the agri space. And then the last is that you need the market and infrastructure. These are very essential. What I always want to say is that the spirit of the fact that we can, as Africans, to be proud of what we have and who we are. The Black continent has a lot to deliver for the world. The world is waiting for us and for us to be able to unbundle that special things that we have. But on our own, one of the first things that we must realize is that we must love ourselves. Last word is that warrior dash is like agriculture. Without a mud, you can't get burnt and you cannot get sweet. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much. This is absolutely wonderful. Wonderful. Like the Africa proverb will say, that it is a version of the hunter story that we get to hear. We never hear the side of the version of the animal story. We need to tell our story by ourselves. And on that note, I would like to hand you over to the host, Ma'am Pamindia Vai. Thank you everyone for having me this evening.
Victoria, you are a star.
Hello.
You are extraordinary.
I'll call you back.
All the speakers, amazing, amazing, amazing. Took me back. I was born in rural Punjab on a farm, and I kept remembering how, you know, the Green Revolution in Punjab came, and we are the, you know, Punjab is the granary that feeds the whole of India, and that's where I come from. And yes, we had the chemical, we had the tractors. My father's first wages that he earned in the UK as an immigrant was sent back to his brothers to buy a tractor so that they could continue farming. So, you know, so I have an absolute connection. I think rather than repeating, there's just so much content that's been, you know, shared in these 2 hours, which we will edit and we will continue to share the recording as well as stories. I think there's 2 things that I would just like to close on. One is that we must, as someone who came to the continent to develop and empower African entrepreneurs through training, through funding, and through seed capital, I saw the impact of that, particularly on young people, 21 to 37-year-olds, 30% of them who had chosen agriculture as their. So they know there's not just a business opportunity, but it's also cool and sexy. And what we have to do is to support them. I think what I've learned from this now, reflecting back after 5 years, that, you know, these entrepreneurship development programs, which are really skills, business skills development programs, we must not keep them in the urban centers. We must now take them to the rural centers. We need to go to the farmers and actually empower them with the skills so that they can not just be farmers, but they can also become business farmers. So they know how to navigate their ways through government, through banks, through financing, through the market, to getting their products into the marketplace. I feel that that is something certainly a lot of the people, a lot of our panelists, we should come together to see how we can develop specifically capacity building of the smallholder farmers. I think my second point is just listening to all of you is storytelling. I'm a storyteller. I spent 25 years of my life before I came to Africa in 2014 making films and telling stories. One of the films I made was about the impact of the Green Revolution in Punjab. Africa is awash with stories, and the farmers are the most potent storytellers, and their stories are the most powerful. So certainly through Support for Africa SMEs and working with Victoria, we need to amplify those stories. I think it just leaves me to say a big, big thank you to this extraordinary volunteer team. All of us are volunteering our time because we feel passionate about Africa. We feel passionate about African SMEs, starting with Victoria, Edmund, Uwam, Linda, Billy, Hilary, Felix, the two Felixes, Oluchi, Shola, Davidson, and Desmond. You guys have been extraordinary in the amount of, you know, your time and resources that you've spent to make Support for Africa SMEs alive and to bring this panel discussion, which began, I said to Victoria, this is a crazy idea. How are we gonna do this? And then to have 700 plus people register this morning, up to this morning, and then to watch Victoria manage and orchestrate this very rich conversation. And thank you to all the speakers, because you all spoke from your heart. You did not depend on PowerPoint presentations. You've given us a lot of solutions and a lot of hope. This is just a start. Africa must reimagine itself post-COVID. It is an opportunity. All of the things that Chika has outlined, yes, the government will have a major role to play, but we, the SMEs and the African farmers, must now organize either through new platforms or use existing platforms like the one that Chika has set up to really make our voices heard. African farmers, you must have a voice and a place at the table of government, of private sectors, of everywhere and anywhere where food matters. Those are my closing remarks. And I literally, really thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Victoria, are you coming back, or is this? And thank you. So thank you very much. I think this is the close of unlocking the food supply chain, the African farmer stories. Thank you. Victoria, do you want to have a last word?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you everyone for coming. And I look forward to hearing from our amazing farmers across Africa. Please connect with us on our social media. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. You are all so amazing, and you spoke to the questions fantastically well. I appreciate you all, and I hope you will open your doors to us whenever we call again. Please connect to supportforafricasmes.com. We will continue to tell the story from the eyes of the African farmers. Together, we will grow our continent. You have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
We did it.